Great to be with you, Tatjana Clancy, keeping you company until midday. Time now to catch up with Neil Hermes. Our favourite bird guru is on the line. Hi there, Neil.
Tatjana, I'm your favourite bird guru.
Well,
you've got other bird gurus, though, but I just happen to be your favourite one.
You may be the only one, but let's not the truth get in the way of a good story. Right?
No, that's fair enough. Good morning. How are you?
I am well. Now, I love this first story because I don't know if I've told you. I don't have a lot of skin in the birding game, but I did used to have a budgie called Boy George in the 80s, and he loved me most of all because I cleaned his cage for pocket money, but also because you just don't want all those bird droppings. And he used to hang out on my shoulder when I watched TV, and he was very, very sweet. So I'm pleased to hear there's a budgie boom happening in Central Australia.
Yeah, well, look, the interesting thing about budgies when you do have, or many parrots when you have them as a pet, they do get very attached to an individual. And, a galah or a cocky or whatever they often do, and they don't tolerate other people much. So,
no.
It's interesting how they do that, and they use it as pet therapy for these purposes. So, I'm pleased that Boy George was part of your life. That's great. And what colour was Boy?
He was
Boy
yellow.
George?
He was bright yellow.
Okay, so that's a colour that's actually artificial colour that's created in captivity when you breed birds and domestic animals. Sometimes you'll get blue ones, sometimes you'll get yellow ones, sometimes you'll get white ones. But right now, in the middle of Australia at Alice Springs, there are millions of the naturally coloured ones, which are all green and yellow, millions and millions of budgies breeding at the moment. It's an extraordinary event.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's nice to have a good news story come out of Alice Springs.
Well, it is. It is. I mean, Alice is a fascinating town with a very long and interesting history going back to Aboriginal times as well. But, at the moment we have these huge wet weather events that have been occurring all through the inland and around Alice Springs. That brings the seeds out, that brings the food out for the budgies. There's plenty of water for them, and so they're just they're making hay while the sun shines. They're breeding like you wouldn't believe. And next month in March, they're expecting another few million to actually come out of the nest. It's going to be an amazing spectacle in inland Australia.
I lived there about 11 years ago, and it was the same sort of weather conditions where it was so green, and just to see, such greenery in the desert is just quite spectacular. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And when you come across these breeding budgie events, there'll be some pools of water, there'll be clusters of trees. The birds will nest in they nest in little crevices in the trees. Every little hollow, every crevice has got a budgie pair in it. There are budgies everywhere. It's just the most amazing natural event.
I love that. Now, I love a good list, Neil.
You're a lister. Okay, you're a lister? Okay.
I love a good lister. It doesn't mean I do everything on my list. I just like writing them and pretending I'm being productive. But the 10 birds that changed the world forever, Neil, this sounds quite amazing.
Extraordinary, yes. This chap has written a book about the 10 birds that changed the world, and he's given them a bit of sort of character for each one. And he selected out some interesting ones. I mean, they wouldn't be my top 10 perhaps, but,
controversial.
Picking out the raven is an interesting one from mythology, because the raven is a bird that's often in various mythological stories in various traditional communities. It's the first bird that's mentioned in the Bible. And, of course, we have the ravens around Tower Bridge. It is quite a significant bird in terms of mythology, and that's just one of the 10 that are picked in this book. And that's the mythology-themed bird, the raven, a bird that occurs in northern Europe.
Some of them are a little weird, like the pigeon. I would have thought that was a little pedestrian.
Pedestrian's a good word. I would have said pedestrian as well. I think the pigeon only really makes it because of that. They're domesticated birds, of course, and they're often raised for food. And they're pest birds when they're released in big cities. But I think they get a Guernsey because of the extraordinary homing ability that they have and how they've had a part to play in various military campaigns and things where they've taken secret messages from place to place. I think that's how the pigeons get onto the top 10.
Now, the wild turkey, those giant turkeys are terrifying. And I remember once staying at Tambourine Mountain at my stepdad's place many years ago, and the turkey just went a little rogue, got out of its enclosure, was chasing me. Everybody else ran towards the house and just left me to just cope, really. And it was very scary, Neil, because it was huge.
Yeah, but Tatjana, the Pilgrims loved the turkey because if it hadn't been for the turkey, they probably, the first Pilgrims there in North America really did rely on that bird for their food. So,
yes.
Perhaps your little traumatic event has got to be put into context. But one of the things I love about the turkey, of course, is it very nearly became the national bird of America.
Oh, of course, yeah.
When they selected the national bird, there was 2 votes for the bald eagle and 2 votes for the turkey, and I think it was Benjamin Franklin actually then voted with the 5th vote for the bald eagle.
I think it looks more majestic, doesn't it, on sort of banners and things, a bald eagle than a turkey, maybe.
Yeah, and history would have been different. Neil Armstrong, Houston, the turkey has landed. I mean, these things wouldn't really work, would they? But anyway, the turkey...
Oh, I love it. I'm here for it. I think that's great.
The turkey does make it to this top 10 list for a variety of reasons as well. Yeah.
The emperor penguin is another one on the list.
Yeah, this is a sort of a canary in the coal mine, if I can mix my birding references.
Oh, always. You're very welcome to.
This is a reference to the fact that, of course, the penguins nest in Antarctica, and of course, with the breakup of the ice in the Antarctic, we have an issue around our environmental future, and I think it's a symbolic bird on the list for that reason.
Now, finally, sky is the limit for a rare flightless bird. So is it just too lazy, or what's the story?
Sorry, I haven't seen this story, Tatjana.
Oh.
But which one was that one? I didn't see that one.
Well, it's saying more than 30 threatened species on Lord Howe Island are making a remarkable recovery. And, I'm just trying to find which is the flightless bird that has...
Oh, well, that'll be the Lord Howe Island woodhen.
Yeah,
so there's a famous woodhen. It's a unique group of... It's its own group. It's the woodhen, and it was highly endangered back in the 1960s and 70s. It's now it's recovered, and what they did was they captured a whole lot of them and put them back into cages whilst they then removed the rats from Lord Howe, and they've now had to reintroduce the Lord Howe Island woodhen back onto the island. Look, it's been a fabulous success, the program on Lord Howe, and they've done an amazing job with the recovery of that species and the potential recovery of many other species with the removal of rats.
Yeah, I was going to say, so there's rodent control involved, but I'm always interested in the evolutionary purpose of flightless birds, because surely they'd be at risk of lots of predators as well.
Sure, but you have to remember that Lord Howe Island, for example, was not inhabited by humans until the first fleet went out there in 1789. So people didn't arrive in some of those remote Pacific islands. And, of course, without the people, there weren't cats, there weren't dogs and foxes and other things. So flightlessness just evolved because there was nothing to threaten them. And it was very common through islands, particularly in the Pacific and the Indian Ocean. The famous dodo, of course, was flightless. And they just don't need to fly. There's a cormorant on the Galapagos Islands that doesn't fly. So without the predators, you don't need to fly. So why put all that energy into all the muscles and things you need for flight if you don't need them? That's the evolution.
Yeah.
But then, of course, they become extremely vulnerable when things change.
Yeah, absolutely, and as they are. Now tell me, Neil, what are you up to this weekend? Because it's gorgeous weather out there. Are you birding?
It is. I am. And, look, I may even go back. During the week, I went out to Roses Lagoon, which is a lagoon between Collector and Goulburn. People may recall that as you drive on the road up to Sydney, there's some big wetlands there. There's been a remarkable sighting of a jacana, a lotus bird, up there, which birds that only commonly occur in Kakadu and the wet tropics.
I haven't heard of this bird. What does that look like?
It has long, thin toes that it walks around on the lilies, on the swamps. And look, they get down about as far as Newcastle, very rarely. But we have this one bird out there on the lagoon, and a lot of the Canberra birders have gone out there to see the lotus bird. I did this week. I may go out again tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic! Will you upload any pics on your website, maybe?
I got some on my phone, but they weren't all that good. So I probably won't load them up.
That's all right, Neil. That's
if
all right.
I do get any, the lotus bird of Roses Lagoon might get a Guernsey. There you go.
Well, look, no, people are seeking you out for your birding knowledge, Neil. They're not expecting you to be a National Geographic photographer, so that's okay.
Oh, we set high standards for ourselves, so, you know how it is.
Fair enough. So I encourage people to go to your website if they want to go out on one of your tours as well.
Yes, neilhermes.com.au. Lots of stuff there for people to look at, and happy to identify photos. I often, almost daily, I get pictures sent to me for people saying, "What's this bird?" And I'm happy to help people with their identification as well. Or they could buy my book, which is also useful in identifying local birds.
Fantastic, Neil. Always a pleasure. Catch you again soon.
Lovely, Tatjana. Ciao.
Thank you. That's Neil Hermes, our resident ornithologist.